Joining me to do that is the broadcaster and journalist Afua Hagen and the editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. Good morning to you, Afua and Tom. Happy Sunday morning, if such a thing can be said. Let's begin with the front page of The Observer. Afua, this is for you. So you've picked out the main story on the front page that the PM should go sooner rather than later, say top Tory MPs. What's the thrust of the article then? Tell us.
Well, absolutely. The tide seems to be turning more and more against Boris Johnson after what can only be described as a disastrous week for him. And now many Tory MPs, front bench and back bench, are feeling that they no longer need to wait for a viable successor, whether that's Jeremy Hunt or Liz Truss, whether they're in the background, garnering their teams. But now many in Parliament are feeling that Boris Johnson just has to go. Even before a viable successor is realised, and people think, okay, this could be the next person to take over the Tory party. Now, we have got local elections coming up on May the 5th, and a lot of people in the Tory party are thinking that they'll see what the mood music is out there amongst the electorate. It could be a kind of referendum from people on how they think Boris Johnson is doing it before they launch a real challenge to oust him from the top job. Now, we know that there's the inquiry going on at the moment into whether Boris Johnson misled Parliament. And, it's said that if it's found out that he did mislead Parliament in saying that he didn't know of any parties going on, when in fact he has been fined. We know that yesterday no further fines were issued. But if the inquiry finds that he did mislead Parliament, then this could be the thing that gets him out of the job. But I think what's telling about this story is that, like I said, so many MPs now are feeling that, whether or not there is a real successor to take over the Tory party, that Boris Johnson has reached the end of his tenure. He's too toxic and he absolutely has to go. And that feeling is growing within the Tory party.
Yeah, and Tom, while that feeling may well be growing among some Conservative MPs, it would strike me that despite what The Observer says on the front page now, the Tories aren't going to want to get rid of Boris Johnson without having someone that they can put in who they are confident is going to win them more elections.
I think that's right. I think that's one of the things that's given him a stay of execution has been the fact that there's no obvious successor. Obviously, Rishi Sunak and all of his scandals over his wife's tax affairs have taken out the one seemingly quite viable successor. You're left with Liz Truss, who struggled to find Russia on a map during the Ukraine crisis. And then there's also, of course, Jeremy Hunt, who's being talked up, who was again passed over last time because he does strike a lot of people as a bit of an empty suit. And I think that's the thing that Boris Johnson is really counting on at the moment, is the fact that people are obviously upset with him. He does feel like a spent force. He has been degraded by all of these scandals, but there's just no obvious person to take over from him. So because of that, he'll limp on for some time, it feels like.
Yeah, well, the Sunday Express having him not quite limping on. This is one of your stories, Tom, now. Not quite limping on, but he's the leader that Britain needs, delivering for the people. An exclusive interview here, I guess, in the Sunday Express. Tell us about it.
Yes, so Sunday Express reliably rowing in behind the Prime Minister, you could say. Essentially, this is Number 10 trying to move the story on to Boris Johnson's record. There's a bit in there about Ukraine, obviously, and showing leadership on the world stage, also pointing to a kind of flurry of new laws which are in the process of making it onto the statute book, supposedly tackling the people's priorities, strengthening the NHS, smashing the people smuggling gangs, as it puts it in this particular piece. But I think this is another problem for Boris Johnson, is that there is this general sense, whilst I think people do support what he's done on Ukraine and do like that, in terms of his sort of domestic agenda, it's quite flailing. He doesn't seem to have a grip on the cost of living crisis. He's pursuing net zero amidst an energy crisis. And then what you have is kind of unpleasant throwings of red meat to the Tory backbenchers, like this Rwanda policy is quite an unpleasant business, which is an important issue, but at the same time hasn't landed well with voters either. So I think it again just, whilst he's trying to move the story on to his own particular record, again, he's kind of found wanting in that respect.
Yeah, let's keep moving our stories on. We'll go to the Sunday Times now, Afua, a front page of that paper this morning, reporting that weapons requests from the Ukrainian government have been ignored by 3 successive prime ministers. Tell us some of the detail of that, please.
Yes, that's right. So this is an investigation that's on the Sunday Times this morning, and it basically says that since 2015, Ukraine has been asking for support in the form of weapons from the United Kingdom. So that's 3 successive governments under David Cameron and Theresa May have not given these weapons to the Ukraine, and this is since the annexation of Crimea in 2014. And the reasons behind that is said to be that the UK government didn't want to antagonize Vladimir Putin. They didn't want to poke a sleeping dragon in the eye, as it were, in any way get his back up. But it seems that now it's far too late for that. Now they are, yes, supporting the Ukraine with weapons, but it took a second invasion after the annexation of Crimea for the UK to do that. And it basically says that the UK have been caught napping, essentially, and that they should have done more when they were asked to support the Ukraine with weapons, and we're supporting them with the needed. And now, frankly, it's a bit too late.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're having a few broadband issues this morning, but let me just bring you in a little bit on that if we can, Tom. I mean, obviously the argument that's made in that story in the Times is that these decisions were made to not upset Russia. And you've got to remember that there's obviously been many years where this sort of fine line has been tread by successive governments to not antagonize Vladimir Putin, and now it's been proven that may have been a mistake.
There definitely seems to have been an underestimation of what Putin was capable of. And obviously, in hindsight, that can seem ridiculous given how brutal his invasion of Ukraine has been. But I think it just reminds us that in many respects, that even Western powers who, shall we say, had no sympathies with Vladimir Putin, maybe didn't have too many illusions about him, I don't think any of them really thought he would ever go this far. It really has been incredibly extreme, incredibly brutal. Maybe that's part of the reason why there was this level of complacency, caution, concern in previous years that, of course, has completely evaporated. Now he's actually executed this incredibly extreme and disastrous plan of his.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, if you look back at some of his speeches as well over the past 20 years, he's been telling us this for years. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to believe the unbelievable sometimes. Right, let's keep it moving then. We've got another story to get to before we go to the break. Tom, this is yours, the front page of the Sunday Mirror. This is about P&O Ferries. They sacked 700 plus workers via Zoom message, and now the paper, the Sunday Mirror, is reporting that they're trying to reduce the salaries of those cheaper workers that they took on. What is going on here?
You couldn't make it up, could you? As you were saying, caught so much flack, rightly so, understandably so, for the dreadful treatment of those almost 800 workers of theirs. And again, these agency workers, these foreign workers that they've brought in to replace them at a cut price, they're now allegedly trying to cut their own wages. There's a particular story in here about chefs who were signed to work on the ferries, who were being asked to sign new deals that would put them £200 roughly out of pocket, originally on kind of 1 month contracts, just so that they could be renegotiated almost instantly. And again, it's contributing to this picture of a remarkably harsh and exploitative company, which is taking advantage not just of its previous set of workers, but even the new agency cut price workers it brought in to replace them.
Absolutely right. Okay, Tom Afua, thank you very much for that review of the morning papers. We'll be back with you later on this morning, so stay where you are, have a cup of tea. All right, well, still to come on Sky News Breakfast, 2 months on from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky tells us at Sky News that the face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin is the only way to end the war.